It was 2003, and Clint Eastwood was reading a screenplay that was making him cry. He was sitting in his office at Warner Bros., the studio that had distributed his films for over a decade, and he couldn't stop reading. The script was called Million Dollar Baby, based on a short story by a boxing trainer named Jerry Boyd, who wrote under the pen name FX Tool. Clint finished it and said 5 words. "It's a downer, but God, it's gorgeous." Then he went to make the film. Except nobody wanted to make it with him. Not Warner Bros., his longtime home, not any other major studio. Nobody wanted to finance a movie about an old boxing trainer and a female boxer with a devastating ending that would leave audiences crying in the parking lot. But Clint made it anyway, and what happened next proved that sometimes the films everyone rejects become the ones nobody can forget. The script had been floating around Hollywood for years. Producer Albert S. Ruddy loved it and spent 4 years trying to find backers. 4 years, and he got the same response everywhere. "I couldn't get anybody interested," Ruddy said later. "And I'm talking about people who are friends of mine, people I've done business with for years. They'd tell me, 'Who wants to see a movie about 2 old grizzled guys and a girl fighter?'" Eventually, Ruddy found someone, Clint Eastwood. Clint read it and immediately understood what everyone else was missing. This wasn't a boxing movie. It was about redemption, surrogate family, impossible dreams, and a moral dilemma that would haunt you for days. But understanding a script and financing a script are 2 very different things. Clint took it to Warner Bros., the studio that had distributed Unforgiven, Mystic River, and most of his films since the 90s. They'd made a lot of money together. They trusted each other, or so Clint thought. Alan Horn, the studio's president and COO, read the script. His first concern wasn't the budget, it was the audience. Clint came to me in his low-key way. He had not cast anybody. I read it and I thought, well, I just don't see it. I thought, I don't know if women want to see a woman fight. This was 2003. Women's boxing barely registered as a sport. Women's MMA wasn't mainstream yet. Horn's concern wasn't unreasonable from a business standpoint, but it revealed a fundamental misunderstanding of what the film was actually about. Clint respected Horn's hesitation. He didn't argue. He just said, essentially, "Okay, I'll take it somewhere else." So he did. He took it to every major studio in Hollywood, and every single one passed. The reasons varied. Too depressing, no market for women's boxing, Clint's too old to play a boxing trainer, the ending's too dark, nobody wants to see this. Film after film, studio after studio, the answer was no. Meanwhile, the budget Clint was asking for wasn't even that high, $30 million. In Hollywood terms, that's nothing. Other studios were greenlighting films for $150, $200 million. Alexander, The Polar Express, big spectacle films with huge budgets. But nobody would give Clint $30 million for Million Dollar Baby. Finally, a production company called Lakeshore Entertainment, led by Tom Rosenberg, agreed to put up half the budget, $15 million. With that commitment in hand, Clint went back to Warner Bros. Now they were interested, sort of. With Lakeshore covering half, Warner Bros. Agreed to cover the other half, $30 million total. But that came with conditions and concerns.
Alan Horn had read the ending. The devastating, controversial, heartbreaking ending where Hilary Swank's character, Maggie, gets paralyzed after a sucker punch in a title fight, begs to die, bites off her own tongue trying to bleed to death, and finally gets a mercy killing from Clint's character, Frankie, who injects her with adrenaline and disappears, never to be seen again. Horn called Clint into his office. The conversation went like this. "The movie killed me," Horn said. I said, "Does she have to die in the end?" Clint, "I'm afraid so." "Does she have to bite her tongue off?" "That's the way we have to go." "Does she have to lose the fight?" Clint didn't budge. The ending was the ending. The tragedy was the point. Without it, the film lost its power, its meaning, its soul. Horn later admitted, "It shows that William Goldman was right. No one knows anything." He greenlit the film, uneasily, but he greenlit it. Clint later told Roger Ebert, "I just wanted to make it. I don't want publicists hanging about. We stayed under the radar. With all the big $150, $200 million films out there, they thought this film was at a different importance level. I had about $25 million to make it with. They had their Alexanders and Polar Expresses they were working on, and I figured my movie was going to have to live or die on its own terms." Live or die on its own terms. That's exactly what happened. Clint cast Hilary Swank as Maggie. She'd won an Oscar for Boys Don't Cry, but wasn't a huge box office draw. Clint wasn't sure at first. She was like a feather, he said, too thin maybe for a boxer. But Swank had something more important than the right build. She had work ethic. She trained 5 hours a day, 6 days a week. She gained 19 pounds of muscle. She transformed herself into a fighter. Morgan Freeman signed on as Scrap, the former boxer who narrates the story. The three of them, Clint, Swank, Freeman, became the emotional core of a film that would destroy audiences. Clint directed with his usual efficiency, shot the entire film in June and July of 2003, just over a month. Minimal takes, trust the actors, keep it simple, keep it real. The budget was so tight they had to use inflatable extras to fill out crowd scenes at boxing matches, lighting tricks to make 8 people look like 80, but nobody watching the finished film would ever know. When Clint finished editing, Warner Brothers looked at the release schedule and said they weren't planning to release it in 2004. They didn't have a marketing campaign ready. It would have to wait. Clint's response? "That's okay. Let's just put it out." The studio released Million Dollar Baby on December 15, 2004 in limited release. 8 theaters, no big marketing push, just the film quietly entering the world. And something unexpected happened.
Critics saw it, and they were devastated. In the best way. Roger Ebert gave it 4 stars and called it a masterpiece, pure and simple. He listed it as the best film of 2004. Word spread, not through expensive ad campaigns, but through people telling other people, "You have to see this movie. It will destroy you, but you have to see it." The film expanded from 8 theaters to wide release. It started making money, real money. People who thought they were seeing a female Rocky walked out of theaters in stunned silence, tears streaming down their faces. The twist happens 2/3 into the film. Maggie's finally made it. She's fighting for a title. She's winning. Then her opponent, a fighter known for dirty tactics, sucker punches her after the bell. Maggie falls, hits her head on a stool, and breaks her neck. The rest of the film is Maggie, paralyzed from the neck down, dependent on a ventilator, slowly giving up hope. Her white trash family shows up, not to support her, but to steal her money. They want her to sign over her assets so they can buy a house. When she refuses, they leave. She's alone except for Frankie, the trainer who'd become her surrogate father. And she begs him to kill her. The film doesn't shy away from this. It doesn't make it easy. It shows Frankie's agony, his refusal, his desperation to find another way. It shows Maggie biting through her own tongue, trying to bleed to death because she can't move her arms to do it any other way. It's brutal, it's heartbreaking, and it's why the film works. Because Million Dollar Baby isn't about boxing. It's about what happens when your identity is wrapped up in one thing and that thing is taken away. It's about a father-daughter relationship that forms too late. It's about love expressed through the hardest choice imaginable. When Frankie finally injects Maggie with adrenaline, a mercy killing that's completely illegal and morally devastating, the film doesn't celebrate it. It shows Frankie disappearing afterward, unable to face what he's done, unable to return to his gym, destroyed by the act of love that killed the daughter he'd found too late. Audiences walked out of theaters shattered. Some were angry. How dare Clint make them feel this much? How dare he not give them a happy ending? But they kept coming. The word of mouth was insane. You have to see it. I can't explain it. You just have to see it. The film made over $216 million worldwide on a $30 million budget. It played in theaters for 6.5 months. Then came awards season. Million Dollar Baby received 7 Academy Award nominations. It won 4: Best Picture, Best Director for Clint, Best Actress for Swank, and Best Supporting Actor for Freeman. Clint Eastwood, at 74 years old, won his 2nd Best Picture and 2nd Best Director Oscar, over a decade after Unforgiven. He'd done it again, and this time he'd done it with a film that multiple studios and his own longtime home had initially rejected. The controversy started almost immediately. Disability rights organizations protested the ending, arguing that the film suggested life with a disability wasn't worth living. They had a point. The film does show Maggie choosing death over life as a quadriplegic, and that message troubled many people. Religious conservatives protested the euthanasia. Pro-life groups condemned it. Some theaters faced picket lines.
But Clint never apologized. He never changed his position. He believed in the story he'd told. The film wasn't advocating for euthanasia. It was showing one specific character in one specific impossible situation, making one specific choice. It was tragedy, not policy prescription. Years later, looking back at his career, Clint would say that Million Dollar Baby was one of the films he was most proud of, not because of the Oscars, though those were nice, but because he'd fought to make it exactly the way it needed to be made. Every studio said no. His own longtime studio said no. When they finally said yes, they asked him to change the ending. He said no, and he was right. Think about what Million Dollar Baby proves about Hollywood, about art, about trusting your instincts. Everyone, literally everyone, thought they knew what audiences wanted. A female Rocky, an underdog sports story with a triumphant ending, something uplifting, something marketable. Clint knew they were wrong. He knew that what audiences actually want, even if they don't know it themselves, is to feel something real, to be challenged, to sit with something difficult and devastating and true. The film's success wasn't an accident. It was the result of a 74-year-old director trusting his artistic instincts over market research, studio notes, and conventional wisdom. How many great films never get made because everyone agrees they won't work? How many stories stay untold because the ending's too dark, the subject's too difficult, the market's not there? Million Dollar Baby almost joined that list. It was saved only because Clint Eastwood had enough clout, enough resources, and enough stubbornness to make it anyway. And now it's considered one of the greatest films of the 21st century. The New York Times ranked it the 3rd best film of the century in 2017. It's on countless best-of lists. Film students study it. Audiences still discover it and get destroyed by it. All because one director read a script, cried, said it's gorgeous, and refused to compromise. The lesson isn't just about filmmaking. It's about knowing when to listen to advice and when to ignore it. It's about understanding that sometimes the things everyone rejects are the things that matter most. Warner Brothers thought nobody wanted to see a movie about an old trainer and a female boxer with a devastating ending. They were spectacularly wrong. People didn't just want to see it, they needed to see it. They told their friends to see it. They went back and saw it again, even knowing it would destroy them. Because great art doesn't give you what you think you want, it gives you what you didn't know you needed. Million Dollar Baby is a film about boxing that's not really about boxing. It's about dreams and family and identity and impossible choices and love expressed through the most painful act imaginable. And it exists only because Clint Eastwood refused to listen when everyone said no. If this story moved you,
Hit subscribe, share it with someone who needs to hear that sometimes the best work comes from trusting your instincts when everyone else thinks you're wrong. Have you ever fought for something everyone told you wouldn't work? Let us know in the comments and ring that bell for more stories about the artists who made masterpieces by refusing to compromise.